Okay, welcome back everyone. Apologies, it's been a while since the latest update video, but things have been absolutely crazy with COVID. So here we are. This is my April 2020 review. As always, we'll start off with my portfolio value and review how that has changed over the last couple of months. Then we will move on and have a look at the analysis of my portfolio. So this is really just a breakdown of the different sectors, and you'll see some significant changes here and how that has panned out over the past couple of weeks. Then we'll look at the new purchases that I've made, and there have been a lot of them, and I've invested thousands of pounds recently, but all good. It's a good time to buy, in my opinion. Then we will look at any star performers. Obviously, it's a very difficult time in the market in general, but some stocks have started to perform better than others. Finally, then, as always, the most exciting part for me is the dividend payments that I've received since the last video. One thing to mention then as well is my Instagram page, which is linked to this YouTube channel. It's really taken off recently, and I'm close to 1,200 followers and only started it at the beginning of this year. So the plan there is to provide some educational posts on investing in general, but also very regular updates on my own personal investment journey. So hopefully you can follow that as well. I'd also like to request any feedback that you have. So what content in particular would you like to see me putting together for new videos moving forwards? Any feedback would be very much appreciated indeed. Okay, so moving on then, as always, starting with the value of my portfolio. As you can see here, it is still heading in the right direction. Again, it started in January 2019 at £781. At the end of April 2020, it was 30,761, which is a net gain versus my last video release at the end of February of £3,334. When you break that down, that consists of £6,305 of new purchases, and unfortunately still some losses, so £2,971 worth of losses. However, I think it's fair to say that March and April were particularly bad months for stock markets in general. I'm confident it will all bounce back in the future. In terms of the analysis of my portfolio then, we will start off then initially with financials, and this is now worth 14% of my portfolio, which is a 6% decrease since the last video. Of course, banks have had a hard time in the last couple of weeks and months. Then we have consumer staples, which remains stable, no change, at 20% of my portfolio. Then we have the biggest change, which is energy. It now accounts for 31% of my portfolio, which is a 12% increase, and you'll see later in the video why that is. Next then we have consumer discretionary, which accounts for 10% of my portfolio, which is actually a decrease of 6%. We move on then to healthcare, which is increased slightly by 1% to 14% of my portfolio overall. Next then we have technology, which is down 1% to 5% of my portfolio, followed by basic materials, which is really Rio Tinto within my portfolio, accounting for 5% as well. And finally, we have telecommunications, which accounts for just shy of 1% of my portfolio. If we put it into the usual pie chart combined, you can see them overall. So yes, energy is now well above where I would like it to be. However, it was a deliberate move recently to invest more heavily in the oil and gas companies, as you will see very shortly. What we'll do now is move on and have a look at the new purchases that I've made since my last video. Firstly, we have the Artemis High Income Fund, £550 there. Next then we move on to my Fundsmith Equity, £350 in that particular fund. Also £350 in my Legal and General US Index fund. Another £350 in my Lindsell Train Global Equity. followed by £550 in my Royal London Sterling Extra Yield Bond Fund, and finally £500 in my Legal and General High Income, which is another monthly dividend payer. So in total for my funds, that comes to £2,650 in the last 2 months that I have invested. If we move on then to individual stocks, I purchased 59 shares of Shell for £1,021. Then 320 shares of BP at 997. And you can see here another 96 shares in Shell for £1,010. So you can see the real difference here in the share price coming down. You're spending the same money and getting a lot more. Then Coca-Cola, I bought 8 shares via my Trading 212 account for £307. And I also purchased 2 shares in Johnson & Johnson for £220, again on my Trading 212 account. So in total for individual stocks, that comes to £3,555. One final area then is I opened a lifetime ISA recently, and I put £100 in there initially into a Legal and General International Index Trust Fund. If we give the total overview then and the breakdown, you can see here that it's £100 in my lifetime ISA, £3,555 in individual stocks, £2,650 in my funds, which comes to a total of £6,305 invested in the past 2 months. So investing heavily, I would say, while the market is down. With regards to the lifetime ISA, I had done my own research before going ahead and opening one up. So I thought, why not just share that information and research with everyone on Instagram? So this is an example of one of the educational posts that I have shared on my Instagram account, and there was very positive feedback. So I do think these kind of educational posts are beneficial to others as well. Next, then we have Star Performer. This is usually where I pick the best performing stock within my portfolio during that month. However, unfortunately, pretty much all the stocks have performed not so well recently due to coronavirus. But here we go. Here's an overview, and you can see very clearly in February and March a big dip coming, and then in April you see a slight recovery with some of the different stocks. For example, AstraZeneca in purple, you can see bouncing back quite strongly towards the edge of the graph here on the right hand side. If we move on then to the second half of my stocks, it's a similar story. You can see some good performance earlier in the year, Kainos for example, in the top line here in the brown, and then they all drop down. However, some do start to recover. You can see that with Shell, for example, in the orange. It does recover slightly in April after hitting an all-time low. However, the likes of IAG, who own British Airways, in the yellow at the bottom, have gone down and stayed down. So they'll be there for a while yet, unfortunately. Moving on then, we have the dividends, and this is the most exciting part for me and the reason why I'm investing. So firstly, an overview of the dividends that I received in March. In terms of individual stocks then, so Unilever paid out £7.29, Shell paid out £47.68. Unfortunately, they did a big cut recently, but I'm sure that'll bounce back next year. BP was £25.36. AstraZeneca £19.03, Imperial Brands £34.56, and the only fund that paid out was my monthly fund in Artemis, £10.45. So a total of £144, which made it the second best performing month for dividends ever in my portfolio. So I was very pleased with that. Moving on then, we have a breakdown of my dividend payments in April. A bit less this time, but still a good month. In terms of individual stocks, so I have a small holding in Coca-Cola, which paid out £2.80. GSK, which I bumped up at the start of the year, it was £21.39. Walmart, I have very few fractional shares in Walmart, experimenting on Trading 212 so far, and that paid out £6. Rio Tinto paid out £40.82. And in terms of my funds then, so Artemis actually dropped down slightly to £9.73, and then my Legal and General monthly fund has started paying out. This will continue to grow significantly, and that paid out 91 pence. So in total, £75.71. If we look then at the graph on Hargreaves Lansdown itself for my individual stocks, you can see here that March was excellent and a little bit of a dip in April. There were some unexpected dividend cuts, but unfortunately that's just the times that we're living in, and I'm sure they will bounce back again in the future. Next, then we have the funds. Now, it's worth noting that I actually only extracted this information at the beginning of May, and my Legal and General monthly fund paid out quicker than expected, and that has appeared here. But overall, you can see that it's starting to build this base level that I was talking about months ago, and I do expect that base level to increase slightly. Certainly later on in this month, you will see May increase further, and again throughout the year ahead. Let's do the big comparison then versus last year per month. As you can see, March was excellent, well through the monthly target of £100 and well up on March last year. Unfortunately, April didn't quite meet the monthly target. However, it again is up significantly on April last year, so all heading in the right direction. May again would have been above the monthly target. However, there's been some cuts to the likes of Aviva and Lloyds Banks, so I expect it will probably be quite similar to April, below the target but well ahead of May last year. I still expect June and July to be very strong indeed, despite the cuts to Royal Dutch Shell. My other dividends coming through should help to prop that up and get us above the £100 target. Here's a few other videos if you want to go ahead and check them out. As always, if you would give me a like and a comment, all feedback is greatly appreciated. Also, feel free to subscribe to the channel and stay up to date with the future videos. So all that can be said now is roll on May. Hopefully the market will start to recover slightly in some areas of my portfolio, and more dividends will start coming through. So as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you all again soon.